Here, some basic principles, domains of learning. What can be learned, and we can distinguish maybe here into different aspects. One would be cognitive. Cognitive would be also related, you would say, intelligence, knowledge. Yeah, what you have here, your cognition in your head and on your mind, your intellectual thinking, rational thinking. Yeah, that some people say it's very stable. You always are smart and remain smart, or you're always stupid and remain stupid. Yeah, but there are many things that can be learned, yeah, and can be developed. Yeah, think of mathematical skills that can be improved. Also, hopefully, you will also improve your knowledge about international human resource management after completing this course. And there are different ways also how to stimulate cognitive learning. And it may also involve memorizing, learning things, and really to improve your thinking and your abilities. Then we have another aspect that would be affective, like affections or emotions. And that would include aspects such as emotions or feelings, attitudes, attitudes towards customers. We talked before about customer satisfaction, that you have a positive aspect. The customer is king, as we say, and in some other countries we say it's a customer desert because there's not much customer service, but that's something that can also be trained. Even if you operate your business in some countries that are not so known of customer orientation. So for me, some of the countries that are really strong in customer orientation would be Japan, Korea. Some of the countries on the opposite sphere would be maybe France. Germany is also not very high on that dimension. And that makes it then also interesting if you're a multinational company, you operate in these different countries. To what extent do you maintain your global best practices? And to what extent you localize? And localization now could mean in both directions, downward localization, offering very poor service, or even offering much higher services. So take the exam, a Japanese department store is going to Singapore or another country, and they very often try to maintain their very high quality of service. At the same time, this means higher cost, training, and so forth. But that's important for them because that's part of what they value. And then also other aspects such as motivations. And in the expat context, it very often refers to motivation to work abroad. We will talk about international assignments, I think, next week. So going abroad as an expat. Some people really want to go and work abroad. I think we asked this question at the very beginning of this class. I don't remember exactly, but roughly half said, yes, I would like to go. There's quite some motivation. Then other aspects of learning we can categorize as psychomotor. So that means anything that is more related to physical aspects, such as if you are a technician and how to operate a machine or something like that. And that you would learn. In international context, very often also you would consider languages, foreign languages as one aspect that can be trained. As we know with languages, it takes quite some time to learn foreign languages. We have one of my doctoral students, she's Chinese, she learned German language in 3 months. Wow. But we also notice she's very good at taking language tests. So language tests, perfect. Speaking, not perfect. But still, 3 months, it's amazing. I remember I went to China for 1 year and okay, I could speak some, but my writing and other things were terrible. So it takes time. If you possess these foreign language skills, that's great. That can be really an asset. It's difficult to train languages, particularly as an adult age. So we have these different aspects, domains of learning: cognitive, some knowledge related, intelligence related, affective, more emotion related, and then also more physical related skills. And all is important and depends on what you're training and for what purpose you try to develop a certain cohort, group of people or individuals. And that also leads to some of the cross-cultural aspects, and that's fairly well known. We have quite substantial difference across countries. What way of teaching is being practiced, and what is expected from teachers and also from students, and it can vary very substantially. Here, just some examples. So in the US, it's very more this participative teaching style. Also, if you go to a business school in the US, you learn by discussing case studies. I think we had a case study yesterday. Yeah, probably you can tell me later how it evolved. How did you participate a lot? Sure, maybe you did. Yeah, the others are very quiet. We don't know exactly. She's even laughing about you now. But yeah, there's quite a difference. And in the US, that's the common way. And they're really active discussions. And the teacher is more like a Socrates-style teacher. He's more like a facilitator. And you answer this, blah, and then there's a lot of interaction. Yeah, people like to share their own experiences. I mean, here, of course, we have to consider in this classroom, not everyone has work experience, or only limited work experience. So you can't say, oh, at my job we do this and that, because you don't have this experience, or only limited. Yeah, but still, that's very common. Yeah, and at Harvard and some other American schools, they use almost exclusively case studies. So what we do today, lecture, which is very common here in Germany, or maybe in China, in Korea, and some other countries. Yeah, so you have more this front teaching. Also look at this classroom where you're sitting. It's like row after row, and everyone is looking to me. Yeah, it makes me feel special. Yeah, but that's the way here typical classrooms are arranged, because that's a typical teaching style here, which is quite different. So when last time I went to the UK, which is also Europe but more Anglo-Saxon, they always have these group desks. Here 6 people, there 6 people, there 4 people, and they can talk amongst themselves and they can interact more easily. Or very commonly in business schools, you have this kind of U shape. Yeah, so where everyone can see everyone and everyone can talk to everyone. So that's the idea, really this participative leadership style. Whereas more frontal, an authoritarian kind of teaching in Germany, in most of Asia, and some other countries. So there's major difference. The question then, of course, is when you, as a multinational corporation, you would like to offer training to your employees in China, in America, in Germany, how do you offer this training? And depending on, we will talk a bit more later about this, you may need to adjust, tailor, so you localize to different countries. Or if it's maybe something more simple, you just standardize it, but maybe the learning effects might be not as good. So that's something to be considered. So we have quite substantial cultural differences in how teaching is being practiced, and also how students receive or learn then from instructions. Before going into that, some general overview of how to design a training program. Here, a systems approach from phase approach, starting from phase 1. At the very beginning, we would investigate if there's any training need. If you think of a multinational corporation, that means you would look into your headquarters and also into your foreign subsidiaries. And any training need can originate from any of the subsidiaries. It could be, for instance, one subsidiary made a great innovation. If you're a manufacturing company, you produce in 10 different countries. In one country, they found a way how to produce at a lower cost by simplifying this process. And as a multinational corporation, you would like to leverage that because you made this great innovation in one country, and then you would like to transfer that to your other subsidiaries and to your headquarters. And in order to do so, you would then try to find some ways how you can achieve that through which means. If the new innovation is more codified, it can be easily put into text, into manuals, explanations, and can be easy. Or very often it's more tacit, so not so easy to be written down, and then maybe you need to transfer people who then would then also teach maybe other stuff explicitly, or others that imitate them. And that would be then aligned with your training objectives. How can you then achieve these objectives, reducing costs, improving process, in a different country. Then accordingly you would design and develop a training program. I think here maybe some general background in terms of training. So if you talk about training and development, most people think it's something like we do now. You have an instructor, it's a classroom, it's a teaching environment. In a corporate context, it can be that way too, but that's not the common case. So the vast majority of training and learning happens on the job, simply by experiencing it. On-the-job learning. So meaning you start your new internship, your new part-time job and so forth. Maybe you get a manual, you get some formal instruction by a boss or by some other colleague. That's one thing. But later on, very often, it's simply do your job and learn on the job. Learn from your own experience. You may receive some instruction. So the general trend would be something like 70, 20, 10. So 70% of all the learning is based on experience. So you learn from experience. And then 20% would be more near the job. Maybe your colleague, maybe your supervisor says, hey, do this, do that. And you will receive maybe some more indirect supervision, directions, and so forth. 10% only would be formal learning or teaching, such as a classroom, a workshop, or something more formalized. So I mean the vast majority is via own experience or work experience. And that's very important. And that also implies then to some extent how we design the whole work setup and so forth, so that people can experience. They can experience to work as a leader, how to lead a small team to begin with, and then maybe gradually increase responsibility. At the same time, this could be supported via more formal ways or near the job, meaning maybe a mentor who would give some feedback, and then maybe also there might be a coach, a professional coach from a HR consulting company or someone else who gives them specific advice and training how to lead a team. So I think that's very important here to understand designing, development, training. Experience is still very important, but also other aspects, and they can be very carefully combined to achieve your objectives. Then in phase 4, before we roll out a large training program, we may think about pilot testing it. You can see, and before you roll it out in large numbers, before you fully implement the training, particularly if you think of a global training program that should be rolled out in most or all of your foreign companies. And important would be also then to evaluate training. Did you achieve your objectives? Meeting objectives evaluation would be, in corporate context, very often aligned with your objectives. So if you train sales personnel to improve sales customer satisfaction, you do maybe with a delay of whatever 3-6 months a customer satisfaction survey, and then you can really check whether you have met your objectives. Most multinational corporations, they prefer hard evaluation, so some hard numbers that you can really provide some evidence rather than attitudinal, which nevertheless also carries some value. Okay, that's some overall overview of implementing a training system, with some reference also to global aspects of it. Then we can think also from a managerial perspective. Imagine you are a supervisor, a team manager, a new training is rolled out, or a senior manager, what would be important, or how can also then these managers or leaders can contribute to successful implementation. I mean, to begin with, what is always important, you need the appropriate budget allocation. Sounds really simple, not always simple, because HR in general is a cost function. You like to reduce costs, and people already are a cost function, and even to train the cost function causing additional costs, that's important to allocate appropriate amount and also time. Then it would be also important to support these training goals, particularly if they're important ones. If it's about customer orientation, it's very important. Sometimes some other training programs, if it's about computer security, people don't care about, oh yeah, just click button, done, yeah, and I don't want to watch this 30 or 20-minute video, just get it over, I don't watch, but then something happens, and then you're in trouble. And then also, I think the main idea is here, leaders should also show commitment. Yeah, maybe they could participate or at least endorse the training. That would be really important, yeah, that employees and followers really see the value in such new training programs. Then if it's a multinational corporation, it's one thing that the headquarters says something, particularly if you think of ethnocentric corporations, global strategy pursuing companies. Headquarters says something, some subsidiaries are not really compliant or not interested in these kind of training programs. So it'd be very important to convince them also and to gain the support, yeah, of local leaders. And as I mentioned, as we briefly touched upon before, it would be important to consider cultural differences. Then during the training, I think what would be really important in a work context, that really the training that has been offered, that's also put into practice. Yeah, so ideally also the training content should allow application of the things you learn on the job, and that can also be then supported. What is then also important afterwards is that the knowledge is also being continuously used, and that it's being applied. That was not the case in the one example of the computer database implementation in Korea. Yeah, then it needs to important to be follow up. Okay, now coming to the Sartorius case. Sartorius has become a global company and they hire many people in many different countries. Also they hire in Göttingen, for Göttingen, people from many different countries. And thousands of new people every year, and in percentage, 10, 20, 30% of their working population comes in every year, and they need to try to get them on board. If you're a small unit, you're welcome. But a person go for lunch, but it needs to be much more systematic in a large company, in particular if you're a global company. And that's also, I think, what the onboarding manager, I think, what was her name? Amira? Yeah, Amira, what she said in our interview when we talked to her. We have a global standard and a local standard. Yeah, again, there's this balance. Yeah, and you need to strike a balance between these different forces, because local activities are always a bit different from global ones. Yeah, as we know, globally, and then they have some global practices and then some localized. And that's also very often what happens with training programs. You have a global component, maybe you have a global video produced for everyone and some instruction, and then maybe some more localized ways of how to train. I think here this group said, oh yeah, in some countries role-playing would be really good, yeah, and maybe in some countries it works really well. In others, maybe people are too shy, they don't like role-playing, and then maybe not, and there's more some instructional way of doing it. And so here they do it too. Yeah, so globally, they have an introduction, but locally they still have 4 different phases. The pre-onboarding, the first days, the first weeks, and the first month. Yeah, the pre-onboarding is about small tasks one can do ahead of one start. The first day is about the onboarding day, blah, blah, and so forth. So the idea is you have some general, global content, and then maybe you localize some other aspects. And that's very common also how they do it in training. So I would say recruiting is a highly local context bound, but still also training is still quite affected by cultural differences and usually is considered if it's important.